primary ignition.
Welcome to Unlimited Power. My name is D-Rod, and here's my Jango pre-release guide for Star Wars Unlimited's newest set, Twilight of the Republic. Now, this set is launching with the pre-releases on November 1st and will be released on November 8th. If this is one of your first time watching one of my videos, the goal here is to look at commons and uncommons within the set that work really well with this leader in a limited format. The reason why we're focusing majority on commons and uncommons is because in these formats you only get 6 booster packs in your pre-release kit or your sealed event. And so that means you're mostly going to see commons and uncommons, and rares and legendaries are going to be difficult to obtain. At minimum you'll have 6, if you're lucky, maybe 9 depending on your packs, but you really can't count on seeing them. I may point out a rare or two in this guide to kind of give you an idea of what works well with Jango, but let's go ahead and look at some of the cards and Jango's ability and what we're working with. Now, Jango's just a simple man making his way in the galaxy, and I wouldn't be a true Star Wars fan if I didn't start off by saying that. But his ability says that when a friendly unit deals damage to an enemy unit, you may exhaust this leader. If you do, exhaust the enemy unit. So Jango, just like his clone son, have very similar abilities in the fact that they are reactive, meaning when you do something, you may exhaust this leader to trigger something else. If you don't do that within that same action, you are going to miss it. And in this case, it requires you having a unit on the board damaging an enemy unit. If that unit is alive still, you can exhaust it. So you may be throwing either, small units at big guys to kind of take care of them. You may find ways of protecting your units so that way you're dealing with units without too much of a penalty. But you can normally count on trying to use this in the right situation at the right time. It may not be an ability you use every turn, and it's not an ability you can use every turn like turn 1. So he's decent, but let's take a look at some other things about Jango. As an epic action, if you control 5 or more resources, you can deploy him as a leader. This means you can do this as early as turn 4. When he is deployed, he's a 3/7 unit that has the same ability, but this time it is not limited to once per turn by exhausting Jango. This is saying the same text of when a friendly unit deals damage to an enemy unit, exhaust that unit. Okay, I like that. So ideally we want to look at units that maybe have some ambush mechanics, or even better, units that deal damage when they come into play. Now, notice here on Jango, it doesn't say anywhere in combat damage or defenders or you need to be attacking. There isn't anything there. So when played abilities or when defeated abilities that deal damage to your opponent's units are going to really benefit you, especially when Jango is out. So the first couple things we're going to look at here is in the leadership aspects of yellow and black. The first card I want to recommend is this event of just on the doorstep. I like this card. I think it's great. And if you're going yellow-black, it's definitely one you want to play. For a 4 cost, you can create 3 battle droid tokens and ready them. All battle droid tokens are just 1/1s, but that 1/1 can do a lot of damage, especially if Jango's out. Swing with that battle droid immediately into a 10/10 or something like that, or an overpowering Jedi, or anything else, and you can essentially exhaust that unit from just them taking 1 point of damage, buying you some time. Jango's definitely trying to hold off your opponents. You can think of him like in the Clone Wars movie, how he couldn't really defeat Obi-Wan on the on the landing platform, but he could keep Obi-Wan at bay until he escaped. You're kind of going to have to do the same thing with Jango here. A little bit more of an advanced leader. Now, as I mentioned earlier, units that can do damage when they come into play are going to be great. And the Elite P-38 Starfighter does just that. For a 3 cost, you can have a 3/2 space unit. Now, this unit says when played and when defeated, deal 1 damage to an enemy unit, a unit. Choosing an enemy unit is the wise decision there because you can now exhaust them with Jango. Next is Zero the Hutt, and a unique uncommon. It's a 2/8, and it's hard to have a Fett without a Hutt. But for 5 resources, when you play them, you can exhaust a unit that player controls. Again, You're already doing this with Jango. Let's use some other units to bring this to your advantage. Zero has 8 health, meaning Zero can swing into a couple of units for you and help trigger Jango's ability if you need them. And on attack, for each opponent you have, you can exhaust a resource they control. So Zero can help you with what you're already doing, holding off your opponent's units. It can continue to hit a unit and not die very easily, as well as it can make your opponent exhaust resources, keeping them off of their own tempo. So I really like Zero here. In the cunning aspect alone, Hidden Sharpshooter is just a card I really enjoy for a 4 cost. It's a 4/3 with ambush. If you need this to hit a big unit, go for it. 4 damage is pretty significant. It could be half or a little bit over half that opponent's health or unit's health, and then you can exhaust them using Jango's ability. Freelance Assassin, though, is what I was conflicted about. It's a 3 cost ground unit that's a 4/2. Now, when played, you may pay 2 more resources to deal 2 damage to a unit. So ideally, you need to pay 5 to get value out of this, at least with Jango, right? Paying 5, knowing you can exhaust a big unit or even kill one, makes this character or this unit a little bit better. However, I wouldn't mind paying 1 instead of 2 to do this ability. Next is the Clone Dive Trooper, a very simple common here that's a 2/1, but with the new keyword Coordinate. Coordinate says you gain the abilities of whatever coordinate list once you control 3 or more units. The Clone Dive Trooper has the ability to attack and give defenders -2, -0 on the turn. While it's attacking. So not only can it kind of protect itself a little bit if it's a bigger unit, it may help you exhaust your opponent's unit in case they do have a lot more health. So use the clone trooper. It can swing in, hit a unit. If it's not taking any damage, it can survive, as well as using Jango's ability. Now, the aggression aspect has a couple of great cards here that deal damage on enter or have on different abilities. The first is the Heavy Persuader tank, and it does not take much to persuade me about this guy. He has the new keyword exploit, which allows you to defeat up to a certain amount of units to lower the cost of by 2 for each unit defeated this way. In this sense, Heavy Persuader tank has exploit 2. This allows you to remove 2 units off your board and lower this cost by 4. Now, if I'm paying 3 for a 6/5, I love that value. If I'm paying 5 for a 6/5, it's okay, but what else is it doing? In this instance, it does have the win played ability that says you may deal 2 damage to a ground unit. Again, this is good with cards like Jango. Moving on to Reckless Torrent. This card also has the coordinate ability that says when you play them, you may deal 2 damage to a friendly unit and 2 damage to an enemy unit in the same arena. Now, damaging your own units can seem silly, but there is some benefits to it depending on the unit, or sometimes you're just going to get rid of something. You do want to have Coordinate online, though, when you play this card. That way you can trigger Jango's abilities. Now, if you want a great unit to damage, let's move on to the next one, and that's Heavy. A 4 cost 4/4 with Coordinate. Heavy says if you have Coordinate online, they have a Raid 2 bonus, which makes them a 6/4 when they are attacking. But damaging Heavy is probably the better part here. When Heavy is defeated, he deals 1 damage to each enemy ground unit. Now imagine this. You have Heavy out. You have Jango Fett out. Your opponent just went pretty wild and created a bunch of clone trooper tokens. You can now play the Reckless Torrent. Maybe you kill Heavy with it and damage all of your opponent's units. Then you can exhaust them all using Jango's ability. That's pretty great. Moving on to the command aspect, we're focusing on a couple of key words here. In Clone Commander Cody, he brings 2 to the table. He's a 5 cost 4/4 with Overwhelm. Now, Overwhelm allows you to attack to deal excess damage to your opponent's base if any damage from your attacking unit is more than your the defending unit can actually have on them. Not only that, Clone Commander Cody has Coordinate, so if you have at least 2 other units in play, you will now give every unit in your arena, both arenas, Overwhelm and a +1/+1 bonus. So pretty great. Coruscant Guard also has the Also has the coordinate ability, but this time it gives them ambush. Ambush can be important because it may benefit you to play a unit, hit something that's pretty big, and trigger Jango's ability. And another ambush card is the Subjugating Starfighter, a space unit with ambush, which this one says when you play it, you can have a droid token as long as you have the initiative. A 3/3 for 4 isn't bad in space, and again, ambush is really going to help you with some of those bigger or mid level units. In the vigilance aspect, I'm going to recommend the Wartime Trade Official, a simple 2 cost common here that is a 1/3, but when they die, they'll give you a droid token. You may need some of these droid tokens to use exploit mechanics, coordinate mechanics, or just continue on using them to deal with bigger units in play. Death by droids is similar. This is going to defeat a unit that's 3 or less for just 5 resources, and it will create 2 battle droid tokens for you to use. Those tokens do come into play exhausted, but again, you can use those immediately if you have to exploit something, like that heavy persuader tank. And last is Grievous Reassembly. The heal 3 damage from a unit and create a battle droid token can be really important, whether you're healing Jango or some of your other bigger units. Maybe the unit you just had to damage from one of your other cards out there. In the villain aspect, the Dwarf Spider Droid is one of my favorites here. A 4 cost unit that's a 3/4 with grit. It's not a bad one to put on the board. It can do some work for you. You don't mind it swinging into units because it really wants to use that grit mechanic. So it's a great one to use with Jango's ability if it can survive the attack and exhaust a unit. Droid deployment is a 2 cost event that gives you 2 droid tokens. Seems great. And Merciless Contest allows you to pay 3, and then you have each player choose a unit they control, and you defeat those units. So as long as it's non-leader, they're going to go. If they don't have any tokens out there, it's a really great card. And lastly, in the non-aspect, I'm actually going to recommend Brain Invaders. This is a rare unit that kind of helps you more than it hurts you. So this is a 4 cost unit that's a 2/4 that says each leader loses all abilities except for epic actions and can't gain abilities. So this would take off Django's ability immediately. This isn't horrible for Django because his ability, although it can be key, you may run into situations where your opponent's leader is just a lot better or more consistent. Again, Django has to see a unit in play dealing damage for you to get this reward. There are some other leaders out there that may have abilities that are just a little bit more consistent and you want to stop to it. So it's worth considering Brain Invaders with Django. Next is the Volunteer Soldier. This is just a great card in this format because there's so many trooper tokens going around that you can pay 1 less for the soldier and get it out there. And it's a 2/3 with raid 1, meaning it's a 3/3 when it attacks. And last in the non-aspect section is Private Manufacturing, a card that allows you to draw 2 cards. And if you control no token units, put 2 cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck in any order. In this format, you're more than likely going to have a token unit, but if you need to put 2 back, just make sure you have more than 2 cards in your hand when you play this. 2 or more cards in your hand when you play this card. So that's my guide for playing Django at your local event. Let me know how it goes for you in the comments below. What colors did you pair? Did you get a great legendary or rare that really worked for you? Did you end up just not using his ability as much as you thought you would? I'm curious. I don't know if Django's a card I want to take into a pre-release event, but I definitely know these are the cards I'm going to be looking at when doing deck building myself. So I wish you luck at your upcoming event that can start as early as November 1st. Have a great time, and may the force be with you.